Hi, I'm Ananya. I'm a junior content manager with Trip 101. Today, I'm excited to welcome Cherrell, who's from Singapore, and it is the destination we'll be talking about today. A very warm welcome to you, Cherrell. I'm very excited to speak to you today.
Thanks. Hi, everyone.
So Cheryl is a local who's going to talk about Singapore. Interestingly, Trip 101 is based out of Singapore, and I have not visited Singapore. I'm quite excited to see it through Cheryl's eyes. A lot of colleagues have told me about Singapore, and I am definitely interested in visiting sooner rather than later. So I'm quite geared up for planning this trip myself, and I'm going to launch into the discussion very soon. So before we do that, Cheryl, tell us a little bit about yourself. For how long have you lived in Singapore, and since when have you been exploring the city?
I am actually 25 this year and I've lived in Singapore all of my life. I'm a local and I hope I'll be able to share a few useful tips for you before you come over. I really started exploring Singapore a little bit more, especially after COVID-19. I think it was generally just a phase where everyone was like hold up at home. And after that, finally, we get to go out again. And it's really about appreciating where you are because traveling was a big no.
You're very right that even though it seems like COVID was a little while ago, it wasn't really. It's just in the past 5 years. But it did definitely give all of us that desire to step out and see more of the things around us, because being holed up for that long in our homes definitely made us really wanting to see more of the world.
Yeah, they call it cabin fever.
So, Sharon, apart from Singapore, do you travel otherwise as well, like outside of your home country?
Yes, I do enjoy Asia countries because I think generally it's just a bit more familiar, a bit closer to home. The flight isn't that long. One of my favorite countries is Taiwan just because the culture there is so nice. Everyone there is so friendly. And in fact, I took my first solo trip to Taiwan last year in 2023.
Oh, nice. Taiwan is definitely, especially for here in Asia, I think Taiwan is quite the trending place right now. A lot of people really like rave about it. So, did you enjoy your trip to Taiwan?
Yes, I really did because this was my redemption trip because it was COVID, right? So initially I did have plans to go to Canberra because they are really good for Southeast Asian art history, which I was studying. But because of COVID, I wasn't able to do an exchange. And after I graduated, I thought, why not take my first solo trip? Taiwan was immediately the destination I had in mind because it seems a bit safer, but of course, never let your guard down on a solo trip. And I got to meet so many new people, and at the same time, I just got to enjoy the city and the countryside because I went to both Taipei and also a bit further to Yilan and Jiaoxi, just took a train there. So that was more like countryside. You get to be near nature, and there was this beach that was so nice. Yeah.
I think that's another conversation that we can perhaps have later
Yes.
about Taiwan. But now to come back to Singapore. So you said you started exploring it in the last 4 to 5 years, mostly after COVID and when the restrictions were released. So what was your motivation then? Of course, it was cabin fever driving you to step out more. But what was it about exploring more of Singapore that what did you decide back when, yeah, the restrictions are lifted and you could step out?
I believe it was also during COVID where everyone started getting more health conscious. You start to think of what you can do at home, and then people were working out. So that was me as well. My mom and I would do home workouts. And I guess one way to stay connected, we would go out on hikes, on like long walks. Because I remember correctly during that period of time, you were not allowed to go out except for exercise. Yeah, so then that was like my respite. And after that, when regulations started easing up, we continued our hikes, our long walks. And I did this coast to coast trip where I walked from Jurong, one end of the island, to Pongo. It was really quite exciting. We walked from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh wow, that's so
Yeah.
it must have been exhausting, but also fun.
It was my I literally couldn't feel my legs after that.
So it was like walking and
Yeah.
exercising, which got you into exploring and documenting also a little bit, right? You started doing that on your own handle. That's cool. So in all your time that you've been in Singapore, if I ask you to like describe it, what sort of a place is it, or what do you like about it? What would you say?
In Singapore, we really take the safety for granted. It's only when you go to other places for travels usually, and then you hear of things like typhoon, earthquakes, and when you really experience it there, or when you start to hear about the news there, you start fearing for your life. And it's actually the reverse sort of situation. So I think there was once in Taiwan when I experienced this with my mom. We were just watching the local news about the typhoon, and we were actually really scared because we've never experienced something like this before. Versus the locals are a bit more, oh yes, this happens quite often. That's something we really take for granted in Singapore, safety and just the general, we just generally we don't experience natural disasters. Yeah. So I would say that I really love that this is a safe place, and in Singapore you can experience many different cultures. It's really good. And
Yeah.
if you ask any Singaporean, they will probably say food. There are just so many food options here.
I think it's the intermingling of all those cultures. The country has four official languages, which is indicative of, right, the different, the four or five major different cultures which come together. And that has definitely contributed to a huge variety of food and a lot of
Really?
delicacies.
Yeah. We mainly use English, but we have so many languages, and even within languages, different dialects.
What I've found really interesting about Singapore often comes up when I'm talking to my colleagues or friends. It's such an urban center. It has really tall buildings and it's like a financial hub and everything. But also, it's so full of nature. Like everyone who goes to Singapore has these really vibrant pictures as well, where they're either into they've gone to the zoo or the nature reserve and they get pictures with wildlife. I find that fascinating that it's such an urban place but at the same time, there's so much nature and greenery that I personally find that surprising as well as interesting. Since Singapore is an island country, does the weather stay the same throughout the year? Are there any variations that tourists should be factoring in about like, when they're planning their trip and when they come visit? Or is it more or less similar?
Honestly, it's summer all year round. It is so hot. And I actually like that it is really hot, but sometimes it gets humid and
Hmm.
sticky. That's when I don't really like it. That's usually around November to January during the monsoon period. And because I'm really an outdoor girly, I would suggest for tourists to come anytime except for these periods. Then again, there's Christmas and the whole Orchard Road will be lit up. And yeah, so that's also really a nice sight to see. Yeah.
Okay, so November to Jan. If
Yeah,
you want to
November
be outdoors, then to be
probably
avoided.
not.
But there
Yeah.
are some benefits of visiting even during that
Yes, yes,
period.
yes, for sure.
Okay. So Cheryl, when you go exploring, you've mentioned your mom a few times. Do you usually go with your mom or with your friends, or who are you usually exploring Singapore with?
It really depends. I do enjoy spending time alone. Sometimes
Hmm.
I have a list of cafes. So sometimes I would just head out to a cafe alone, read, and just people watch. Sometimes
Hmm.
I ask my mom along, and sometimes I also hang out with my friends. So it really depends on my mood.
Okay, you'll go exploring on your own or with whoever is willing to tag along with you.
I think depending on the interest, because I do enjoy museums, but sometimes my friends find it boring. My mom wouldn't be that interested, so I would go alone. Yeah, so it depends on the activity.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, like everyone has their own interests and museums for sure. I know a lot of my friends don't like visiting museums, but I personally do like that, spending time there.
I
Yeah.
will take you there when you're here.
So let's get into your favorite spots in Singapore. What are the ones like if I ask you, what would you recommend me? The spots that I should must include in my list of places to go. What would be your top suggestions?
Okay, I know this is really basic, and all tourists would probably know about this already, but you should definitely do Gardens by the Bay and the Art Science Museum together in the same day. Highly recommended because it's in the same area anyway. I love Gardens by the Bay because there's aircon and there's nature. You can have the best of both worlds. And it
Yeah.
and the view actually changes at night. Yeah. And there are two different spaces inside Gardens by the Bay, two different observatories. Sorry, not spaces. Yeah,
Hmm.
so there's one changes according to season. For example, there's Sakura season, and then it would change to that. I would also recommend a trip to Marina Bay Sands on the same day because, again, same area. And you
Hmm.
should definitely have coffee at this cafe called Angelina. It's a really recent find. So this indoor canal where someone would row the boat. You could pay for that, but honestly, I think it's good enough to have a coffee and enjoy the scenery.
I think
Like,
Marina Bay Sands is definitely
yes,
something that everyone who aspires to go to Singapore has heard of, or even if they're not directly visiting, they'll definitely get pictures clicked in front of it, or it's quite a iconic structure.
yes. So there's like basic tourist spots that you should
Yeah.
cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So you also mentioned the Arts and Science
At
Museum.
Science Museum, they do have a fixed exhibition by team labs and also some exhibitions that would switch up. I think it's different from our other museums because it's really experiential. You go there, you can interact with the exhibits. For example, there's
Mhm.
this feature where you can draw and
Oh.
illustrate and put it into a scanner, and then your artworks comes up. So that's
Oh,
really comes to life. Yeah.
that's so cool. Visit a museum and then something that you create becomes a part of an exhibit, even if it's for a short while.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah, that's really so. Those are your top three picks: the gardens, the Arts and Science Museum, and the coffee shop. The name was sorry, what was it? I
Enjoy
missed. Coffee
in
shop
SPX.
at Marina Bay.
But this is the basic
Yeah,
attraction to cover.
yeah. What is your like if on any day you're feeling like you have like a lot of time to hang out somewhere in the city?
Go-to spot. I think I'll probably be at Haji Lane. The next set of spots I'm going to recommend is for people who are interested in art, in culture, in just cafe
Hmm.
hopping. Generally, Haji Lane has become quite a popular spot because they have things such as booths, cafes, pop-ups, thrift stores, really vibrant even on a weekday. And
Hmm.
after that, you could probably go to either National Gallery or Asian Civilizations Museum where there's Southeast Asian art. Yeah.
Ah, okay. The Hajj Lane is the one that's close to a really popular mosque, isn't it?
It's quite near.
We can find that on a map later on. But yeah, I've heard of it. So you like to hang around in that area in Haji Lane and then go a little bit cafe hopping or spend some time at the pop-up stores.
Yes, so that's really near Kampong Glam.
Oh yeah, that was the name,
Arab
Kampong
Street.
Glam.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your go-to spot on a day when you're a little bit free and want to
Yeah.
step out. Uh,
I would also like to recommend a nature route, which would be at Pongo. There's the Pongo waterway to Coney Island. Coney Island
mm.
is really a little bit more deserted, more foresty, like a really good hike if you need to be away from the city.
Ah, okay. So you take the waterway to get to Coney Island, and then on the island itself, you can go for hikes and just walk around among within nature.
So actually it's called Coney Island, but technically it isn't. I wouldn't really call it an island because it's still part of Singapore. It's just that it's more deserted.
Do you like going there for hikes as well? Was it like a part of going hiking a lot after COVID?
Yes. So sometimes I do ask my friends out for hikes. That was one of the spots I used to go quite often as well.
Okay. Are you likely to see some birds or animals over there as well, or is it just trees and foresty area?
You will be able to see some birds, otters. They are either really welcomed or really hated in the Singaporean community because they have had a history of going into homes and killing fishes.
Okay.
Like people's actual pet koi fishes.
Okay, so complicated relationship.
Yes, complicated.
But on Coney Island, you'll see them among nature. Like they won't be
Yes.
destroying your personal property.
Not sure whether they will be destroying anything.
What are your other spots to be in the city? Can you tell us about some cafes that you like going to or any places to eat?
For food, I have a list of recommendations, but usually what I enjoy is zi cha. which is basically a few hawker dishes. So in Singapore, we have this thing called mixed vegetable rice, where you order a few dishes together with rice. Think of it as mixed vegetable rice, but family edition. You order a few dishes and then you have
Hmm.
rice. This includes things like chili crab, you can order kangkong, prawn paste chicken, clay pot tofu. Honestly, these are the few dishes that I always eat whenever we go to a zi cha store, which is
Hmm.
available at most hawker centers or just in your neighborhood,
The street side food.
usually in a hawker store. So
Okay.
instead of them offering a main dish, let's
Hmm.
say char kway teow, right, is a main dish, you order rice and a few side dishes.
It would be good to go with a group so that you can try more of the side dishes
Yes.
along with your main rice dish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can find this anywhere in the
Yeah.
like it's yeah.
Yeah. Hawker center. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then what are your other recommendations?
There's also Chinese food near Chinatown called Dongfang Meishi. That one is really good because you can also order different dishes, but this is more Chinese style. Yeah,
Okay.
so for those who are into like spices, spicy food, who have stronger palate, they can go for this. And
Mhm.
I just realized that a lot of my recommendations are near Chinatown. There's also Oba. Oba has been here for quite a while now. It's a Korean barbecue place. Just think of grilled meat. And you know how Koreans always have this really nice steamed egg. If you like Japanese cuisine, there's hamburg steak under this brand called Keisuke. They have free flow egg over there. So the steamed egg, fried egg, omelette, something that's really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So if it was like, if you had to recommend one dish that everyone should try while they're visiting Singapore, what would it be? Which one of these would you recommend them to try?
A specific dish. I think I would still say chicken rice. But I did go to Thailand recently, but the chicken rice there hits different. I think
Mm.
the chicken rice in Singapore is just really comforting. Yeah.
And do you have one place or one hawker stall where you go, where you really like it?
Wow. Actually, this one is my childhood chicken rice store called Loy Ki. It used to be in Wood where I used to live, but now they have since shifted. And I actually stumbled across it one day. I was just walking past and I was like, wait, I know this brand. I was like, oh my God, it's still here. Yes, I do like it, but debatable. There might be better chicken rice stores out there. It just has a particular memory attached to it.
So where is
Yeah,
it now after it shifted?
near Geylang, if I'm not wrong. Or near Whampoa Food Center. Mm.
So this is the food that you dream about.
Yes, from my childhood.
But it's quite lucky of you to find that stall again. It got lost
Yes.
and then it came back to you.
Yes, it was like a random day when I was exploring alone, and I was like, wait.
That's so cool. So it was totally unexpected, and now you have your favorite version of chicken rice available back to you
Yeah.
because of finding that stall again.
Yes.
Any other dishes or restaurants that you would like to recommend to someone who's visiting Singapore for the first time?
I'm really not sure what to recommend because there's so many cuisines. There's also this really good Mexican food. Singapore is the space where all of these cuisines can come together and you just have so many options. Mexican food you can try Super Loco is this place near Customs House, which is really near Marina Bay Sands area. The ambience there is just really amazing. You like tacos. Mhm.
So you can
But
try various types of cuisines. You've given us suggestions for Singaporean food, Korean, Japanese, Mexican, so a wide variety of cuisines and dishes that you can have while you're there.
you could find all of the Singaporean cuisines at any hawker center. So you can order the usual black or white carrot cake that's sweet or tasty. There's also bak chor mee, which is minced pork noodles. There's fishball noodles, lots of carbs.
Food wise, definitely, if you're in Singapore, you're sorted because there is quite a lot that you should and must try. And
Really, there's also roti prata, tissue prata, and then there's like prata with cheese and mushroom, prata with sugar, prata with condensed milk, and the list just goes on and on.
what like most of the items that we've discussed so far are savory. So what sweet items would you suggest?
Oh, okay. Sweet dessert. There's also Chinese desserts. There's one really famous one at Bugis. That one is called It, which means one family in Chinese.
Oh,
Yak Ka Yan. So that is in Cantonese. So that
yeah.
one you can try different things such as mango sago, but they have a few interesting options like ice cream. There's also like grass jelly, there's steamed egg. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Cantonese dessert.
Traditional Chinese desserts. But there's also Korean desserts like bingsu,
I think one trip that can be done to Singapore would be
full-fledged foodie trip.
so you eat your way through Singapore, see the sights a little bit, but then you find these different cuisines, dishes,
Yeah,
desserts,
you should do it. This is why I need to go walking
walk more so that
so you can eat more.
yeah, that's a good slogan, like a motto to live your life.
The subtitle this video. Walk more to eat more.
Yeah, let's come back to some of the other spots that you've mentioned earlier. I don't think we discussed them in that much detail. So you had mentioned Haji Lane, the National Gallery, and the Asian Museum. I want
Yeah.
to know a little bit more from you about those.
The National Gallery is this really well-lit space. So you can think on white walls, and they do have permanent exhibitions as well. And I think every year they have certain festivals, and I think that if you're traveling to Singapore, you can keep a lookout for those. Usually there's one in January called the Light to Night Festival. Yeah, it's the Light to Night Festival every January to February-ish. Yeah, so where basically you can go on like a walking tour, and at night there will be projections on the galleries, both National Gallery and Asian Civilizations Museum.
Ah, okay. So from the exterior of the museum, you'll see the light projection. That must look so cool, and even the neighborhood would look so different when that's happening, right?
Yes, yes. That's something interesting. If you enjoy history and culture, like Southeast Asian history and culture, you would love Asian Civilizations Museum. For me, it's interesting because I'm able to feel more connected to my own culture and seeing like what's like the history of art in our neighboring countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, you can try to understand the history of the country through the art representations of various neighboring nations because
Yeah.
Singapore is such a melting pot of cultures for sure. And yeah, the food options and then museums and galleries where you can understand the history and culture of Singapore. So, anything else that you would like to recommend to a first-time visitor?
Maybe neighborhoods. Should we talk about neighborhoods? I think that Katong is all the way in the east. They have many nice cafes, fitness studios. Recently, there's a new store called Big Shot Coffee, and the coffee looks so yummy. So that's Katong. There's also this new space called New Bahru. Not so sure if you've heard of it. It only opened up really recently. I think it used to be where Nan Chiao High School was. Previously, it was a school, and then they converted it to a creative space for independent brands.
So, you can explore these new stores that are coming up.
That's called New
Uh,
Baru.
when you're usually out and about, apart from walking, what other mode of transport would you take? Do you prefer to walk most of the time, or is it possible to take other transport as well?
Actually, the buses are really convenient, and the train is also quick and clean. So
Hmm.
usually I take the MRT. Can be confusing at the interchange, but most people will be friendly if you ask them.
Okay. And is it easy for tourists to get passes or tickets for the MRT quite easily?
Right. Actually, on that note, when I travel, I usually like to use Klook. For
Oh,
Klook, like activities, but I'm sure there's also a transport pass over there.
okay.
Yeah.
I think a person visiting should have a sort of itinerary set about what they can visit, how they can go about. They can either take the bus or the MRT, drop by at these various neighborhoods depending upon their interests. So I think it's time to ask you more about places where someone can stay. Do you have any specific neighborhoods where you would suggest that a person visiting Singapore should be staying in this neighborhood, depending upon like if you like the vibe of a certain location or experience they can have.
Right. I would suggest the east, where Katong is, or in town, but I know that hotel prices are really expensive in
Mm.
Singapore, and we
Mm.
don't really have accommodations in, let's say, my neighborhood, Sembawang. We don't really have hotels here. Yeah,
Mm.
they are really already placed right in the heart of the city. But I believe
Mm.
for solo travelers, there are probably a few capsule hotels that you can check out.
Okay.
Solo traveling, but if I'm traveling with my family and all, because Singaporeans sometimes do staycations, but I think it'll be too expensive to spend like the whole trip there. So I recently stayed at Marriott Hotel South Beach. I think this was
Okay.
2 years ago actually. It's really convenient, and they're like really nice restaurants, and there's like a infinity pool that's
Oh.
comparable to the one at MBS, but it's really I'd say it's more quiet. I think MBS is like probably overpopulated with tourists. If you prefer something a bit more quiet, a bit more chill, you can
Hmm.
definitely go for this hotel.
Okay, so you did a staycation at the
Yeah.
South Beach Marriott.
Yes,
Were you celebrating an occasion when you were there?
we celebrated my mom's birthday, and the breakfast spread was so good.
Did you like your stay over there? How much time did you spend? Just a day or?
I think just a day, 2 days, one. Yeah.
Okay, so it was a good staycation, family fun. Yeah. Did you also have other meals apart from the breakfast over there?
So I think we walked over to Suntec City because it was really close. And Suntec City is quite a good mall to go to because it's connected to City Hall. You can go to Marina Square and Raffles City. Pro tip, Raffles City is located at City Hall and not Raffles Place. These three malls are close. If you like to plan your itinerary to maximize it, you should plan these three locations together.
Okay. So you were staying at the Marriott and then you were stepping out to explore the immediate neighborhood with the.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, okay.
Window shopping.
So you had a good, like your mom's birthday was celebrated well at JW Marriott, South Beach.
Yes, yes. They also did give us like a birthday cake.
Oh, nice. Okay, so if some tourists are looking for that kind of luxurious stay, they can definitely explore that as an option.
Maybe to end the trip or to start the trip.
Yeah. More budget options would be capsule hotels or cheaper types of accommodations, which would balance out the whole
Yeah,
thing.
this is what I like to do when I'm traveling alone.
What would your tips be for people visiting Singapore? Anything they should not forget to bring, or some rules that they should follow while they are in Singapore?
Okay, I think the first one would just be mosquito repellent, sunblock, and umbrella. Essentials. I think mosquito repellent is only if you're going on a hike. Yeah. And then be open to trying new food. There's probably just so many options. Just go for it. Like you never know whether you like it or not. Recently, there's marinated crab in one of our Korean restaurants. So you don't even have to travel to Korea to have that. Eat in Singapore instead of traveling to Korea to find out whether or not you like marinated crab. Be open to trying new food. Another tip would be to search TikTok because Singapore is so small. You can find a lot of local news media outlets on TikTok. For example, things to eat at Tanjong Pagar, and then there'll be a whole list of food for you to choose. It's also very visual. There are videos for you to see, read the comments. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not that good. Yeah.
Trust the locals documenting
Yes,
their
yes.
experiences on TikTok. Would
That's
the
right.
same apply to Instagram as well? Because as someone from India, I can't access TikTok.
Right. I think on Instagram, it might work, but SEO wise, I think TikTok works better.
Okay.
Wow.
So us
Honestly,
Indians are at a little bit of a disadvantage.
no, actually, if you Google, I think the TikTok post would come up. So if you're in Singapore, then maybe you can do your research in Singapore when you Google and the TikTok link comes up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Else you can follow the Smart Local Singapore, there's book, there's Seth Louis, just to name a few.
Yeah, those are good suggestions that like find what the where the locals are eating and what they're
Yeah.
recommending.
Yeah.
And you're likely to have a good meal.
Oh yeah. few more tips. Maybe just be mindful of the law, like there's no eating on the trains, be respectful. As usual, as travelers, we come in as a sort of like outsider. Like, for
Mm.
example, yeah, it's just important to respect the local culture, no
Yeah.
matter where you are, no matter where you are. So this is just like a general, not really useful tip, but like, just remember to just be respectful. And Singapore is really safe, so I would recommend that you explore Singapore both day and night. I think the vibes that you get is like really different. Yeah.
It would be safe to go around walking at night as well, in case someone's willing.
Yes, and the public transport is also there for you, so really accessible
Hmm.
as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's really nice. Yeah, you can maximize the time that you're spending in Singapore by exploring it both at day and during night.
Actually, from my experience when I was overseas, certain malls tend to close a bit earlier, like 8 plus. But I think in Singapore, we close around 9:30. Then, yeah,
Mm.
a lot of supper spots as well.
So you can definitely, up until like quite late in the night, you can be out and about and also get a meal. Yeah, those were all great tips. Is it possible to just be able speak English and be okay? Would everyone be able to help you out or when you're on the streets in case you need help with directions? English would work just fine, right? When
Yeah,
you're
I would say that. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah. Any, you mentioned that certain rules should be respected while you're in Singapore. Are there any specific ones that travelers should know about?
Honestly, I think that there are quite a few signs. Simple things such as no smoking, because they are like fines. Singapore is actually quite well known for our fines and regulations, but mainly just no eating on public transport.
And look out for the signs near you. You should be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah,
get a
you should
sense
be able
of
to.
how you're supposed to act and behave in public spaces.
Honestly, I think Singaporeans are quite critical if you get a stare by someone.
You're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. We also do have reserved seats for pregnant women, for elderly. Yeah. So if you
Okay.
find yourself sitting down and someone's looking at you,
Then you're probably doing something wrong. Look
just
out for
a
the sign.
signal to like maybe gently give up your seat.
Okay. I think that's a good point. Then be mindful of the spaces you're in and look out for any specific signs, which would be either restricting a certain type of activity or requesting you to follow certain rules. So
Yeah.
definitely for a pleasant stay in Singapore,
Yeah.
those will be essential.
But also no matter where you are. Yes.
No matter where you are. So I think those are all good tips, Cheryl. It's been really great to learn about Singapore from you. With this, I think we're coming to the close of our session today. I would like to ask you one last question about Singapore again. I want to know what's, in your opinion, as a local, the coolest thing about Singapore?
Located in such convenience. We're just so thankful that we have so many neighboring countries. For example, it only takes us like a ferry from Singapore to Bintan to Batam, or you can just take a train to JB. So I think that's really cool in the sense that for locals, if we want like a quick escape, there's
Mm,
also like sort of options for us. And at the same time, being in such a great location, we are also still able to access our local parks, nature, and to just get away for a bit. So I feel that there's always options for you, no matter where you are in Singapore. Great. Yeah.
yeah. It's really well connected for sure. You can go to pretty amazing tourist destinations yourself. I think a lot of people also use it as a pit stop before moving on to another destination as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, Cheryl. With that, we'll close our session for today. I hope that our viewers will find the information you've shared today useful.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Bye bye.